The nightmare just keeps rolling on in Washington. And what's coming up this Sunday against the Chargers could be straight up brutal. 3 locked-in starters have officially been ruled out, 2 more stars are up in the air. And now there's a bombshell out of Tennessee that has Adam Peters scrambling for a Hail Mary move before the trade deadline. As the clock ticks and the season slips right through our fingers, the question isn't even if we can win in LA anymore. It's whether we'll even have enough guys to field a competitive team. Stick around till the end, because what's happening in this teaser is just the opening chapter of a story that could define our whole season. Reality landed a haymaker this Thursday in Ashburn, no sugarcoating it. Terry McLaurin, Noah Brown, and Sam Cosmi are officially out for Sunday's matchup against the Chargers, and honestly, that's just the tip of the iceberg for a situation that is completely off the rails now. But here's what's really got me losing sleep, and what should have every Burgundy and Gold fan up all night. Deebo Samuel, our go-to receiver since that blockbuster trade, missed practice for a second straight day with a heel injury. Mike Sainristil, our starting cornerback, also sat out again with a knee problem. Let me tell you right now, when Dan Quinn says, everyone's trending up on Wednesday and then the next day you have 5 key players either out or hanging by a thread, something just doesn't add up. Remember when we thought losing Austin Eckler and Dietrich Wise Jr. was the worst thing that could happen to us this year? Looking at this injury report, which reads more like a grocery list, those days just look like a vacation compared to what we're dealing with now. Since week 1, the number of games played is literally tied with the number of players sent to injured reserve. Read that again. Tied. That's not bad luck anymore. That's an epidemic. The decision to fly out to LA early Thursday night, allegedly to get used to Pacific time, takes on a completely new vibe now. Isn't it kinda sketchy that the organization ruled out 3 starters a day earlier than usual? I really think there's more urgency here than they're admitting in public. When Sam Cosmi, who literally just had his 21-day practice window opened up this week, is already officially ruled out, that tells me the team knows his recovery timeline is way longer than what was being sold. Let's talk real numbers, because stats don't lie, even if the words from upstairs try to spin it pretty. Terry McLaurin missed the Atlanta game with a quad injury, and now is missing his 2nd straight week. Noah Brown's missed a straight with groin and knee issues, in an offense that already lost Austin Eckler for the entire season. Now we're asking Jaden Daniels, who's just coming back from his own knee injury from week 2, to run the show without his top to opening day receivers. And do you know what's most frustrating? We actually had momentum. We just took down the Raiders. Jaden was medically cleared to play. The offense was finally finding its groove. But then came that collapse against Atlanta, and with it, this avalanche of injuries that's exposing every weak spot on our depth chart. So riddle me this, how much more can this roster take before it just collapses? Luke McCaffrey and Jalen Lane are gonna have to grow up fast, like super fast. Last week we saw flashes of what they can do, but asking them to fill the holes left by Terry McLaurin and Noah Brown, while Deebo is questionable, that's like sending a high schooler to take a college final. They might have the raw talent, sure, but you can't just manufacture real experience overnight. Sam Cosmi's case deserves a spotlight of its own because it speaks to something deeper within this organization. The dude tore his ACL in the divisional playoff game against Detroit back in January, grinded his tail off all offseason, opens his practice window on Wednesday, and then gets shut down again by Thursday. Dan Quinn said he's worked like a beast to get back with his teammates. But let's get real. January to October, even in the best-case ACL recovery scenario, is a rush job. 9 months for an injury that usually takes 10 to 12 months to heal is pushing it. Plain and simple, the offensive line, which already has shuffled pieces after other injuries all year, now knows for sure Cosmi isn't making it for Sunday. That means those same 5 that have been trying to keep Jaden upright have to face Joey Bosa and Khalil Mack out in LA. If you're not feeling the pressure reading that, then you don't get how nasty that Chargers pass rush can be. The good news, using that term as loosely as possible, is that Dorrance Armstrong seems to have finally kicked his illness and was at the facility Thursday before the team left. Nick Bellor was a full go after resting Wednesday. John Bates, who got banged up against the Packers the same week as Jaden, is also back as a full participant. But honestly, that's like putting a band-aid on a cut that really needs stitches. Ale Cajo is still in concussion protocol, limited in practice, which hits our linebacker depth right when we need it most against the Chargers team that can run it at you from any angle. Percy Butler is still limited for a second day with a hip injury. Then you have Thursday's bombshell. Darren Payne got added to the injury report with knee issues. Limited participant, Darren Payne, our defensive tackle who's been one of the only reliable constants up front. Now I gotta ask, when does this nightmare end? Every time it finally feels like we catch a break or get some stability, another name pops up on that cursed injury report and it's crisis mode all over again. Reality check. We're heading to LA short-handed across the board. Going against a Chargers squad with its own drama, but who, at home, pack enough pass rush power to feast on a beat-up offense like ours? Jim Harbaugh is looking at this injury report and probably drawing up a game plan. That goes right after our holes. And us DMV faithful just gotta hope Cliff Kingsbury can somehow move the ball without his usual playmakers, if that's hard to swallow. Wait until you hear this. While we're dealing with this full-on injury fiasco, the front office is actually looking at a move that could completely change up our backfield. While the washing and walking wounded limbs into each week, news out of Nashville has Adam Peters weighing options that would have sounded wild just a few weeks ago. Sports Illustrated says the Commanders might actually be kicking the tires on a deal for Titans running back Tony Pollard. And yeah, that sounds like off-season clickbait, except when you really look at the big picture, it makes more sense than I'd like to admit. Pollard is 28. On a 3-year, $28 million deal he inked with Tennessee last year, and so far this year has 68 carries for 261 yards and 1 touchdown. His 3.8 yards per carry is the lowest average of his career. But let me point something out. When you're running behind that Titans O-line, which is leaking pressure almost every snap, and you're suiting up for a rebuilding team, sitting at 1-3, those numbers don't tell the whole story. And here's why the move actually makes some sense. Austin Eckler has been out for the year. Since week 2, Brian Robinson Jr. got shipped off to San Fran in a surprise front office deal. And even though Chris Rodriguez Jr. is looking good with 5 points for yards per carry in his starts, is that really enough to carry a playoff-level offense? Especially with all these receiver injuries putting even more weight on the ground game. But here's what complicates things and where the numbers start telling their own story. Ja'Cory Crosky-Merritt, our rookie back, is running at a 5.9 yards per carry clip, with 29 touches for 172 yards and 2 scores in 4 games. You see that? 5.9. That's nearly 2 yards more per tote than Pollard this season. Then you've got Jeremy McNichols, who sure had a 60-yard scamper against the Raiders that does pad his stats. But even taking that away, he's still averaging over 5 per carry. So I gotta ask, why would we give up a draft pick, maybe a 4th or 5th rounder, for a 28-year-old back with just 3.8 per carry, when our own roster is getting it done? Some will say the answer is experience, veteran presence. A dude who's been a number 1 back in this league. Pollard cracked 1,000 yards for Dallas before landing in Tennessee. But let's not forget that big season came behind the Cowboys O-line, one of the league's best at the time, and with Dak Prescott keeping defenses honest. Our offensive front is solid, but we're not Dallas. Defenses know Jaden is just returning, so without Terry McLaurin, they're gonna load the box on every run look. Adam Peters already went all in this year. Trading for Deebo Samuel and Laramie Tunsil were big, aggressive moves, classic win now signals. But there's a fine line between plugging legitimate holes and making panic trades, because injuries are gutting your depth. And speaking of real holes, want to know where we do have a massive need? Edge rusher Dietrich Wise Jr. is done for the year. Javonte Jean-Baptiste, who stepped up post-wise, is now on IR with a pec injury. If Peters is going to spend more 2025 draft capital, I really think it needs to be on getting pass rush help, not stacking the running back room when Rodriguez and Crosky-Merritt are balling now. Here's the inconvenient reality. If Peters really is thinking about this move, maybe he doesn't trust Chris Rodriguez Jr. as much as his stat line says he should. Or maybe he sees something about Crosky-Merritt's health we don't know. Or, and this is what really worries me, maybe he's bracing for even more injuries because he knows something the rest of us don't. The Titans are 1-3. Rebuilding under Brian Callahan, and absolutely open to dealing vets for picks. Pollard's got league-wide value, not just for us, so if Peters makes the call, he won't be the only GM calling Tennessee. A bidding war could drive the price up, and suddenly we could be talking about a 3rd rounder for a 28-year-old back in the last true prime year of his contract. Now compare that to what we gave up for Deebo, a 29-year-old still in his prime, bona fide track record. Or Laramie Tunsil, who instantly upgrades the O-line. Pollard just doesn't move the needle for this offense like those guys did. Not with the backs we already have producing. The trade deadline is November 5th, so Peters has just over a month to make a call. But let me say it one more time. Every day we don't add an edge rusher is a wasted day. Every snap where Armstrong and these young guys carry all the pass rush weight. Is another snap increasing the odds of even more injury? If we're dropping assets, let's do it where it could honestly swing the direction of our season. The tough truth is, we're 2-2, but could easily be 1-3 or even 0-4 if a couple bounces went the other way. The margin for error is razor thin, getting thinner with every injury. A vet running back brings depth and leadership. Sure, but a game-changing edge can wreck games. Force turnovers, keep our battered secondary alive. While Jerry Jones is doing his Dallas spin routine, the Eagles juggle their own locker room drama, and the Giants, well, that's its own mess. We've got a real window to take charge of the division. But that window won't stay open forever, especially if we keep stacking injuries without making the right moves to level it out. Could Tony Pollard help? Probably. Is it the best use of our limited resources? I don't think so. But Adam Peters has earned my trust with his moves so far. So if he pulls the trigger on this deal, I'll defer to what he sees, just praying it's something more than straight-up desperation wearing an aggressive mask. Yet even that drama doesn't touch what's brewing. When you really dig into the latest injury report and what it means for our Sunday chances, the picture only gets more alarming. Let's get back to the full injury report, because details matter, especially when you're trying to figure out which version of the Commanders will even show up in LA. Trust me, after breaking down these numbers and looking at the true impact of every missing guy, it's obvious this is the most depleted roster we've put on the field all year. Starting with the offense, which would be funny if it wasn't so tragic. Terry McLaurin and Noah Brown, both out for another practice back-to-back days. And these aren't just depth guys. These are two of our main opening day receivers. Factor in Deebo Samuel, who's DNP for the second straight day. And we might be lining up against the Chargers with Luke McCaffrey, Jalen Lane, and Diami Brown as our main pass catchers. Anyone want to guess how many catches Jalen Lane has this year? Three grabs and 4 games. And we might need him as our number 2 or number 3 option against the Chargers secondary. That isn't top 3, but is plenty good enough to make life hell for inexperienced receivers. Luke McCaffrey's flashed, with 8 catches for 88 yards and a score. But he's still figuring out the finer points of NFL route running. Losing Sam Cosmi on the offensive line is a way bigger deal than it looks at first glance. We all knew his return was ambitious on the ACL timeline, but opening the practice window felt like a sign of hope. Shutting him down a day after screams that his knee just isn't bouncing back, or the Ray injury risk is way too high even for an emergency depth play that puts either Trent Scott or Andrew Wiley, depending on how they juggle their line, right across from Khalil Mack. Let me say that again for the people in the back. We're asking a backup guard to hold up against one of the top edge rushers of the decade. If Jaden Daniels doesn't get that ball out in under 2.5 seconds every snap, it might be a long day. John Bates, coming back as a full participant after missing time with calf and groin issues, is honestly great news. We'll need him not just catching passes but blocking in an offense that's probably going to need to run even more than usual with so many receivers down. Zach Ertz will have to be clutch, but having Bates healthy gives us way more flexibility. Colson Yankoff back as a full go after an ankle injury adds tight end depth huge. If Cliff Kingsbury goes heavy onto tight end sets to make up for the lack of receivers. But the Chargers will know this too. They'll see our only play is probably to run, use extra blockers, do more play action. And when a defense knows what's coming, it gets way harder no matter how well you execute. Now on defense, the problems are just as serious, but in their own way. Mike Sainristil missing his second practice with a knee injury is massive. This isn't just any corner. He's been a super steady starter all year. Lose Sainristil, and suddenly more snaps go to Benjamin St. Juste or Emmanuel Forbes Jr., both with their share of wobbles. The Chargers have Justin Herbert, who healthy is a top 5 QB. He's got Keenan Allen and Mike Williams. If Sainristil can't go, Herbert is going to target that weak link. He'll test our backup corners in man coverage all day, and Herbert's got the arm to make us pay. Darren Payne landing on the injury report Thursday is the kind of update that makes you question everything. Payne has played every D-line snap this year. He's been our anchor against the run, and now he pops up as limited with knee trouble. Is this something he's been fighting all week and it just flared up? Or did something go wrong in practice midweek? If Payne is limited or worse, can't go, then Fedarian Mathis and Jerson Newton need to step up. Talent, sure, but not the experience or muscle at the point of attack that Payne brings. The Chargers will see that and may pound the run game, lean on their O-line, kill the clock, keep our battered defense off the field. Ale Cajo still in concussion protocol even in limited status. There's no promise he'll be cleared for Sunday. We lost Jordan McGee back in camp. Linebacker depth has held up okay, but every loss there makes us that much safter. Especially against the Chargers attack that comes at you all kinds of ways. Percy Butler limited for a second straight day. With the hip issue takes a bite out of our safety crew, just when we need them most. If Sainristil can't go, the safeties have to help in coverage, drop down in the box. Play deep when Herbert looks deep. Butler less than 100% limits what we can do. Only real good news on defense. Dorrance Armstrong past his sickness and Nick Bellor back full go. Armstrong's been up and down but still our best edge with Wise out. We've got to have him bringing heat on Herbert, setting a tone on early downs, forcing the Chargers into third and longs so we can get creative with blitzes. Bellor as a full participant matters on special teams and for linebacker depth. But let's be honest, if Bellor is out there for lots of D snaps, something else has gone wrong. His biggest value is in teams and locker room leadership. So let's put it all together and see what the game plan looks like. The Chargers are 2-2, aiming to find their rhythm under Jim Harbaugh. And they need this win to avoid a losing record before their bye. They'll show up motivated, physical, and will try to bully us at the line on both sides of the ball. We're coming in with a QB who's missed 2 games and just got back. Minus the starting receivers, another one questionable. Now missing our starting guard, and gaps on defense that a talent like Herbert can feast on. If you're Jim Harbaugh seeing this injury report, wouldn't you be drooling at the chance? The one edge we have, Jaden Daniels, is back and healthy. He changes everything. His scrambling, his playmaking, ability to keep plays alive and look downfield on the move that gives us a shot in any game. But to ask a rookie QB, second game back from injury, away, facing a tough defense, and with his top weapons out, to fully carry the offense, that's asking a ton. Dan Quinn needs the coaching game of his life. Cliff Kingsbury has to get creative with play calling, manufacture easy throws, use misdirection and motion to spark confusion. Joe Witt Jr. on D has to dial up pressure without blitzing. Because if we leave our backup corners out on an island, Herbert is going to cut us up. This is the kind of game that defines a season. Not because it's a division rival or a primetime showdown, but because this is the sort of adversity that shows a team's true character. Can we hit the road, missing half our starters, and find a way to win? Or will the weight of all these injuries finally break us and start the season's real slide? I believe this team has the mentality and coaching to compete. But competing and winning aren't the same, and honestly, if we walk out of LA with a W, it'll be one of the gutsiest wins of the year considering everything. If we lose, it won't be for lack of heart. It'll just be the plain truth that we didn't have enough healthy players to match up with a Chargers lineup that's in better shape and playing at home. The one silver lining, if you can call it that, is our next matchup is Monday Night Football at home against the Bears, that extra recovery day. With the home crowd, gives us a shot to get some guys back, get right. But first, we've got to survive Sunday. We have to avoid letting it get ugly, keep it close, and give ourselves a fourth quarter puncher's chance. So here we are, Commanders Nation. 3 stories, 1 message. This is the defining stretch of the season and we're not even at the halfway point. First, we roll into Sunday minus Terry McLaurin, Noah Brown, Sam Cosmi, with Deebo Samuel and Mike Sainristil both questionable. And now Darren Payne on the injury report too. This isn't just a hospital. It's a full-blown outbreak. Second, Adam Peters is considering bringing in Tony Pollard from Tennessee. That raises more questions than answers about how much trust we really have in our backfield, and about where our trade capital should actually go. Third, once you break down the full injury report, once you really dig into every missing guy's impact, one thing's clear: this is the most depleted roster we've put out all year. But now I ask you, is this the moment Jaden Daniels proves he's the future of this franchise? Is this the time where Chris Rodriguez Jr., Jake Kroski Merritt, Luke McCaffrey step up and show they belong in the great category, not just good? Or is this where injuries finally do us in and we have to face the truth that this season is on the ropes? Should Adam Peters be prioritizing a trade for an edge defender over a running back? Can Chris Rodriguez and Krosky Merritt carry the run game without needing to bring in Pollard? What worries you more, not having enough healthy receivers on offense, or the holes that keep opening up in the secondary? Let me know your takes in the comments, because this isn't just my channel, it's OUR community. We're a family bleeding burgundy and gold, who've suffered together for years waiting for this team to mean something again. And now, with a serious front office, legit leadership, and AQB who's got star potential, we can't let injuries wreck this shot. If you believe this team can rise up and get a W in LA, smash that LIKE button. If you're worried but still hanging onto faith, hit like too. And if you want even deeper breakdowns on every position and front office move, make sure you subscribe, because that's what we're bringing all season. Tomorrow, I'll have a full Chargers matchup breakdown, dig into how Cliff Kingsbury can scheme around these injuries, and drop my final game prediction. You can't miss it. My insight might totally flip your view on this coming game. This is more than football. It's who we are. It's what unites us in the DMV, and when this squad hits the field Sunday, they represent all of us. Let's show them we've got their backs no matter how many names are on that injury report.